Target stores in 5 states receive bomb threats over Pride decorations. Except for it's not for the way that the mainstream media, especially the USA Today and the Washington Post, tried to make it out to be. But we'll talk about that and what's happening there and what we do with that. In other news, 9 people are injured in a Denver shooting near the NBA Finals celebration. In a news that did make it into some of the mainstream, but quickly fell out of the narrative. We'll talk about what happened there, what happens with this, and where we go next. The Ukraine accusing Russia of more war crimes as we look into what could be the end stages of the Ukrainian war, or possibly things that are going to extend this and make this go even further. So we'll talk just a bit about that and what's happening there. And the United States, speaking of the Ukraine, is ready to unveil yet another military aid package. It is going to be all of this and more on our weekend makeup stream that will bring us back into chronological order and put our episode numbers on the proper days of the week. So strap yourselves in, have some fun, get in here and do some live chatting, and tell some friends. We'll probably be here for about an hour, so we'll see you on the other side of the title card. And as always, I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So I have no idea if anybody's even going to show up. It is a fantastic day out here in Wisconsin, but I knew that I had about an hour's worth of content that I could not get to through the week. So we're going to sit down. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that's happening here. I do hope that some people come back in and join us here today, but you know, I would rather be on the trails too. So I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I would not blame anybody who didn't come in and chat, and especially people who came in and just lurked throughout the rest of the day. But we're going to talk about what we missed throughout the week, the Target and Pride Month things that are going on there, the Denver mass shooting that came into the news for a day and then just completely disappeared because, well, there are reasons that they don't want to sit back and talk about a mass shooting unless it fits certain criteria, so we'll talk about that. And a fair amount of Ukraine news that completely missed the news. So I would say we've probably got about an hour's worth of content. So hop in, bring some friends, strap yourselves in, and we will see what's happening over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, and Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine, as we aim to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. For too long, we've got all of our news, our culture, and our politics from people who wear suits that cost more than our houses. Stop doing that. Get your news, culture, and politics from people who are just like you. Go check out all that great programming, and let's get down into the news of the day. Let's get started. We're actually going to start with finance today because this is a makeup stream. Plus, all the markets are closed. So let's get into it and let's get started. And we're going to pick up right where I wanted to leave off from as we went. We're going to start with the Target store stuff. Let's get the live chats up and open here. Again, not really expecting a lot of activity over here today. It's Saturday, and it's awesome out. It is amazing out. Maybe we'll get some people in driving. That'd be kind of fun, but no texting and driving, so that I can understand as well. All right, let's get started. We're going to start with the Hill today. This is from Monday, so we've been sitting on this one here for a little while. Target stores in at least 5 states receive bomb threats over Pride items. What would you think if you looked at a headline like that? especially given what they were trying to do with the headlines for this earlier on in the month. I will admit, when I looked at this headline, that was the first thing that I thought was, oh, some crazy redneck or some government plant, one of the two, came back out and decided to do something stupid because, hey, we gotta force our Christian ideals down people's throats. Or more likely, man, they're being too calm during this Pride Month thing. We've got to see if we can't stir up some felonies. One of the two. I'm actually still, by the way, and we're on the 17th right now, which means they're only 30 days. We only have just a little shy of 2 weeks left in this month. But, I mean, realistically, when we look at what's happening here and everything that goes on there, I'm a little bit shocked that we haven't seen a false flag at a pride parade just yet. But we will see what happens with that and where that goes. But this, what I was talking about earlier, that's not the case. That's not what happened here. This is from Olaf Ocean. And let's read. Mogwai is over here, and he's over on the Twitch side, rather. Says, I missed the stream, and Ed is making it up to me. Yes, I am. Plus, this was the topic that Mogwai actually wanted to see, too. So, on Friday, and it is planting season. I think you're a little bit late for planting season. There are a few summers that you can still get through, but for the most part, you miss planting season by just a little bit. All right, let's look at what's happening here. Target stores in at least 5 U.S. states have had to be evacuated over the weekend after receiving bomb threats. The latest example of backlash the U.S.-based retail chain has received for its Pride Month merchandise. The Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, reported Monday that news outlets in Oklahoma, New Hampshire, Vermont, Louisiana received emails from unknown individuals about bomb threats at stores. In one email sent to Oklahoma City, NBC affiliate KFOR, which is owned by Nexstar Media Group, the sender listed 7 locations in and around Oklahoma City, claiming that 2 of the locations already had bombs in them, saying they hid the bombs inside of products. The bombs will detonate in several hours. Guess which ones have the bombs? Time is ticking, the email read, also ending with the date 4/19/1995, the date of the Oklahoma City bombing. Oklahoma City Police Department spokesman Gary Knight said the several outlets notified them about the email threats, adding that after evacuating the listed stores as a precaution, authorities didn't find any suspicious items, according to the Post. South Burlington Police Chief Sean Burke said in a news outlet in Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York all received the same email threat to target stores over the weekend and accused the retail chain of betraying the LGBTQ community and named the locations of 4 stores in the 3 states, including the South Burlington location. And that's the giveaway right there. Now, keep in mind, the first time we're actually seeing a motive for this is after the headline. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs in, when they finally say that the threats are accusing Target of betraying the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU sometimes Y community and name the locations. If you were if you were a typical person who believed in the alphabet agenda, and you wanted to come back out and prove to the evil, meanie Republicans and the evil, meanie Trump supporters on Twitter, that any of this, that their people were the ones that are out here doing this, and they need to come back out and disavow this, you would probably share this article. I would, if I was in that camp. The headline comes back out and makes, I would say, very unclear at this point what the actual threat was. I would believe, until 6 paragraphs in, that this article was about some crazed right-winger who was threatening to bomb Target over LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU sometimes Y people. And I'm a person who analyzes this all the time. And yet again, just the way this is worded, the tricky way that they put the facts into this article. I think most of you, if you didn't have advance notice of what had already happened, if this wasn't already a week old, would have said the same thing. It's actually a little bit weird because the events and this news story, you would have thought that this would have stayed in the news for a little while, but it completely disappeared. The big ticker here is that they use the 4/19/1995. More of a day in libertarian celebration than necessarily a conservative celebration, but progressives who want full authority over economics and the rest of our lives don't know the difference between a libertarian and a conservative. So, of course, they would think that anybody who's a conservative would think that a person bombing a federal building would be a hero. It's a little false flag that went in there. Mogwai says, this is a governmental false flag. There's no way a bunch of Karens with resting bitch face would let their target get bombed. Well, and that's a part of the thing too, because they looked through all these stores and they found absolutely no bombs. Now, an interesting side note of this, and this is something that I talked about the first time we went through this 2 weeks ago. And remember, this is the second time that this has happened. Government agencies have to take a bomb threat seriously. And I would go out on a limb and say that 99.9999% of bomb threats do not have an active bomb involved. Maybe it's a little bit more than, or less than that. Maybe it's like 98% or so. But the vast majority of active bomb threats do not have an active bomb. Even the DC pipe bomber, whoever that may be, had absolutely no bombs there. They were duds, if they were ever intended to be bombs at all, but again, I'm almost positive that was a governmental false flag. But they have to evacuate. They have to treat it as if it is, no matter whether the statistics say it's not going to be or not. Because that one time they're wrong, there's going to be a mass casualty event, and then people are going to say, why didn't we act on this? It was the same thing. And again, I pointed out the first time we went through this a couple weeks ago. I went to a high school that was plagued, briefly, by a series of bomb threat after bomb threat after bomb threat, over and over again for a little while. I went to a high school that had that happen. And again, they had to pull us out of the building every single time until they could go back and sweep it. Now, the first, I think, like 3 times, they sent us all home for it. But after they wised up and realized that there wasn't going to be one, and they were just going through the motions once again, they still had to act on it. They still had to get us all out of the building. But they actually bussed us over to the middle school, and we all had to stand around in the gym in the middle school for like 4 hours. But again, you still have to act on it, because that one time you're wrong and you say we don't have to act on it because it's just going to be another false flag. That's when you hear the boom and suddenly you're in a mass casualty event, which is disruptive to sales too, because now you're sitting here, you've lost, even if they only close down for like what we did in our high school, 3 or 4 hours. Let's say because of the amount of retail that's on the store, and every one of those could be a place that could house a problem. You've still got, we'll call it 4 hours plus another 2 hours of cleanup after they've ripped off every piece of clothing to see if there's something in there. That's 5 hours of sales that they lost in a time that they're already struggling because people don't want to go there because of the LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU tuck-friendly underwear. Target initially received criticism for its LGBTQIRAMIGIXTBYAEIOU initiatives last month, with the retail chain announcing last month it removed some Pride Month merchandise in its stores last month after facing backlash from customers citing concerns about their workers' safety. After the announcement, company stores in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Utah received bomb threats from people who were claiming to be unhappy with the removal of Pride merchandise, the Post reported. The Target controversy has followed a similar arc to Bud Light, which received backlash to its partnership with transgender actress and influencer Dylan Mulvaney. In a statement to The Hill, a Target spokesperson said, "The safety of our team members and guests is top priority. Law enforcement investigated these claims and determined our stores are safe," adding that their stores are currently open and operating on regular hours. So, again, you've still lost hours upon hours of retail sales. You wouldn't think that that's an awful lot of sales going on there, but I mean, there are a lot of things that happen in a few hours. Like a few hours at a Target, even in a small town, you're probably losing $30,000 to $50,000 worth of merchandise. So that's what we have with that, and we've got some reaction to this as well. Mokai says, "I grew up with that too. The teacher's plan was just to put us 10 feet away because that pipe bomb Jimmy said he planted was not going to cause fling debris." And then he says, "A Mormon bombing? The fiends!" Well, the thing with, and I mean, if you're going to be a bomb threader, typically you're calling it in, like these people did, and you're not telling them where it is or where to go start looking because they want the whole store cleared. So nobody can be in there bringing merchandise around. That's the goal, is to just get the entire building cleared. And again, it was the same thing in the school that I grew up with, where they were doing that over and over again. The intent was to get the building cleared, to cause a disruption in the flow of education, a disruption in the lives of parents. I never found out what the motive was, by the way, at that, because, well, pretty much I was more focused at that time on just getting out of the small town that I grew up in before I moved back very close to it again. Whoops. But yeah, if somebody's either showing a pipe bomb or telling you where it is so you can just get 10 feet away from it, that's not an effective threat. I can say that. You'd think Uncle Sam would do a Target in the Upper Carolinas or Georgia. Possibly. Let's read one from Oklahoma's News 4. Target responds to bomb threats at locations in Oklahoma City. From Hunter Elise for KFOR. After an email was sent to News 4 Saturday afternoon, Target sent a statement regarding the alleged bomb threats to these Target locations in the metro area. Remember a couple weeks ago when they did it the first time and they actually did the email to Timcast? For a reason that I actually can't begin to understand. Target's statement says, "The safety of our team members and guests is our top priority. Law enforcement investigated the claims regarding several stores in Oklahoma City area today and determined these stores are safe. Our stores are currently open and operating regular hours." Customers said they had no idea what was going on at the store on Saturday. "There's something going on, but they're not telling us. I was walking up there and a guy kind of stopped me and said, 'Hey, we're closed for a technical issue,'" said Carrie and Haley, Target customers. Target employees said they were closed for technical issues, but the email sent to News 4 says otherwise. And that is the email that was there, which, by the way, with the exception of having many more locations, is almost identical to the email that got sent to Timcast. We're going to play a game. 720 Southwest 19th Street, Moore. 1700 Garth Brooks Boulevard, Yukon. 8315 North Rockwell Avenue, Oklahoma City. 5400 North May Avenue, Oklahoma City. 1400 24th Avenue, Northwest, Norman. 7305 Southeast 29th Street, Midwest City. And 1200 East 2nd Street, Edmond. 2 of these locations have bombs in them. We hit the bombs inside some product items. The bombs will detonate in several hours. Guess which ones have the bombs? Time is ticking. 4/19 at 1995. Norman police responded to threats The Norman Police Department was made aware of the alleged threat and responded to the target location in our jurisdiction. The call has since been cleared. Target's location off Rockwell evacuated customers on Saturday. The store at Memorial and Penn and other locations not on the list evacuated customers as well, which is probably a good practice, especially if you've got a serial list like this. Edmond police said they did not evacuate their target location. That's ballsy. Yes, again, even knowing that there was nothing there and knowing statistically there's not going to be anywhere, that's still ballsy. The threat left customers confused across the metro area. I was like, hey, this side is closed. And he was like, the store is open. It's not closed. So I walked inside and they're like, no, we're closed. So some of the workers don't even know what's going on, said Carrie and Haley. Is there even a Kmart to go after at this point? Alright, what else do we have? We got one from Fox on the headline, which is probably the first comment that I made. And again, we didn't use the Washington Post headline in here, but The Hill did the exact same thing. So, from Fox News, the Washington Post under fire for misleading headline on Target bomb threats. They buried the truth. With the way that the Washington Post does things, by the way, I'm going to touch on some of the dishonesty that they did and the way that they hid it as well. And it's going to hold some better gravity, I think, given the fact that we're doing this from an archived article on top of it. I'll explain why in just a moment. Let's read from Fox News first. Washington Post under fire for misleading headline on Target bomb threats. They buried the truth, from Brian Flood. The Washington Post came under fire on Monday for burying critical information when it reported the Target stores have received bomb threats over Pride merchandise. The Post headline, Target stores see more bomb threats over Pride merchandise, led many to believe that conservatives who object to Pride displays sent the threats. However, in the 7th paragraph, the 6th in the Hill article, of the report, the Post noted that police said some threats came from people who accused Target of betraying the LGBTQIA, MIGI, XTBY, AEIOU community. The report also noted a threat to Oklahoma City locations that was sent to a local TV station that ended on 4/1995, the date that Timmy McVeigh decided to blow up a government building. Conservatives were initially annoyed when Pride merchandise for children and adult items, such as female-style swimsuits that can be used to tuck the wee-wee, were prominently displayed at the front of stores, but when Target scaled back the presentation and removed certain items, citing safety concerns, members of the alphabet community felt betrayed. That's the headline. And it's not very much different in the Hill. The bomb threats are from people upset at Target for betraying the community, but the headline was intended for you to think that conservatives are upset about Pride and calling in bomb threats, the radio host and What's Killing America author Jason Rantz wrote. These sorts of tweets are very helpful to me on my radio show, explaining how mainstream media outlets are narrative focused and hide inconvenient truths to sell these narratives. They hope people won't click, radio host Eric Erickson wrote. Influencer Ian Miles Chong added, "We need a community notes on this misleading tweet caption." As the article itself, but not the tweet, states, the threats were made by apparent trans activists upset with the removal of Pride merchandise at Target. And the Washington Post did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Let's talk about this for just a moment. And the difference between both the Hill article and the Washington Post article. Now, I don't use the Washington Post on my show for a myriad of reasons. I do use them occasionally, but the Washington Post is extremely propagandized. Now, I call out the Hill, the Associated Press, CNN, ABC, and a host of others for being propagandized, but they look objective compared to the Washington Post. We pointed that out reading their articles. The New York Times, a former newspaper, is the same way. That's one of the reasons I refuse to use them. But a big reason that I do, or I don't use them, is the fact that they hide almost everything on their site behind a paywall. Now, Fox as well does. Although Fox isn't necessarily on a paywall. Fox is more of a, you have your ad blocker on, so we want to block you from reading our article so that you stay on there and look at ads and give us clickbait money. Please don't archive. And they haven't figured out how to get around the archiver to keep people from going back and archiving their articles. Which, and again, I could go back and archive the Washington Post as well, which is how I get around their paywall. But the fact of the matter is the majority of people, some of them are starting to wake up and figure it out, but the vast majority of the people have no idea that you can go back and archive an article and get around the paywall if you want to go back and read it. Especially when they're in the middle of a heated Twitter argument. Sorry, Silent Caster. So all they're going to see is the headline. And by the way, this goes with the leftoids too. It really does, because a lot of them aren't archiving anything either. Some of them have a paid subscription to the Washington Post, most of them don't. So they do the same thing. They only see the headline and they think, oh, well, evil conservatives are out there trying to go out and bomb a target, when that couldn't be any further from the truth. And yes, the Washington Post especially is getting rightly and roundly panned for this. Now, what did we say about The Hill? Because they did the same thing. Misleading headline, first mention of the fact that it was actually coming from the left, 6 paragraphs in instead of 7. But The Hill isn't buried behind every paywall and ad blocker block that you can think of. I mean, we're looking at the live Hill page here, whereas like if we go over to the Fox News, you can very, very clearly tell that I archived this. And the Washington Post would have been the same thing. Oh, please sign in or subscribe to continue reading this article. No thanks, that's why I have the archive.today plugin up at the top of the screen, so we can get around this kind of crap. And of course, our friends on the left, even if they don't read the article, believe that the Washington Post is the most trusted name in news, so they're more than eager to go back and share that around. And say, look at what the evil conservatives are doing, not knowing that it's coming from, in many cases, some of their left. Now, this article has been widely shared, panned, talked about by commentators on both the left and the right, including commentators on the left who are commenting on what commentators on the right have said about it. But at this point, it is common knowledge that the threats came from the left wing of politics. Part of the reason the story came out of the news right away is because people figured that out in a hurry. But before this widely got shared around and people started to know what was happening with it, I would be willing to bet that a lot of our friends to the left actually believed, when they shared around the Washington Post article, that this was something that was coming from the right-wingers, the evil right-wingers that they are. So that's what we have from Fox News. Let's read one from Newsweek. Is Starbucks banning pride decorations? What we know from Matthew and Pelly. And it turns out, no. Starbucks disputed claims from its workers' union on Tuesday that the store was banning pride decorations in the midst of Pride Month. In a statement, a spokesperson for Starbucks told Newsweek that we unwaveringly support the LGBTQIA2 +, divided, multiplied by community. There's been no change to any policy on this matter, and we continue to encourage our store leaders to celebrate with their communities, including for U.S. Pride Month in June. We're deeply concerned by false information that's being spread, especially as it relates to our inclusive store environments, our company culture, and the benefits we offer our partners. Starbucks has a history that includes more than 4 decades of recognizing and celebrating our diverse partners and customers, including year-round support for our alphabet friends, the statement read. The remarks by Starbucks came shortly after the Starbucks Workers Union, I still can't believe that's a thing, by the way, shared a Twitter thread saying that the company had banned pride decorations in stores across the United States. Which would have, by the way, if true, shocked probably this entire country. I don't think anybody would have believed. When I started seeing the scuttlebutt going on from the union, I'm like, no, that's not a real thing. And then, sure enough, Newsweek comes out with an article that says, yeah, that's not a real thing. For the last 2 weeks, Starbucks workers have taken to social media to report that the company was no longer allowing pride decorations in store. This seems to be the first year the publicly pro-LGBTQ plus minus sign company has taken this kind of stance, the union wrote on Twitter. You probably should be careful biting the hand that pays your paycheck. And I don't know what union is actually doing this, but given the left-wing nature of Starbucks, their attitude towards the union, and the way that most corporate unions actually work, I would be willing to put some money down on the bet that the workers themselves don't put money into the Starbucks union. I would be willing to bet that it comes automatically out of their paychecks, and Starbucks corporate in their payroll department goes and pays the union. If anybody knows anybody who works in the Starbucks, can you confirm or deny that, please? Taking a cue from Target, who bowed to the LGBT pressure and removed Pride merchandise, corporate and district management are taking down the Pride decorations that have become an annual tradition in stores. Target and other companies, including Bud Light, have faced criticism and boycotts over their support for the community. Target, which is the subject of outrage over clothing in its Pride Month collection, eventually removed the items from its stores due to the controversy. That means it's working. The initial claims by the Starbucks Workers Union sparked celebration from some conservatives who've also supported boycotts. In addition to Target and Bud Light, the North Face, Kohl's, Lego, and PetSmart have also faced boycotts for LGBTQ plus items being sold for Pride Month. And the thing that the Newsweek article is leaving out is the fact that, with the exception of Bud Light, because that's not supposed to be targeted towards kids, it is still. The rest of these stores had many of their items targeted for children, especially Lego. Bud Light's controversy was initially sparked by the beer company's partnership with Dylan Mulvaney. The company had sent Mulvaney a commemorative can of beer in April with her face on it to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the transition. Sales of Bud Light have tumbled since the controversy began, with Modelo Especial dethroning it as the best-selling beer in the United States. Charlie Kirk tweeted out, "Breaking! Starbucks has banned Pride decorations in its stores halfway through Pride Month, the company's workers' union has revealed." That's because Charlie Kirk is an idiot. Now again, I saw this article. The article first talking about and proclaiming the fact that they were banning the merchandise, banning the decorations and everything else. And I said, no, they're not doing that. Because they're going to face the same backlash that Target faced when they moved their stuff to the back of the store. Starbucks knows its target audience, knows its regular audience, and they're not stupid enough to do that. In fact, if they did go back out and ban, I would probably come back out and say it's time for them just to go under for reasons other than why I think it's time for them to go under. I'm a Dunkin' fan myself. Because they prove that they can't cater to their target audience. And Charlie Kirk is still a moron. And a lot of people, it looks like Savannah Hernandez, who I don't even know who that is, also was able to jump back out and say that Starbucks went back and did this, and, well, let's be realistic, they didn't. But people went back and ran with it. But in a place that it actually is going to be happening, from the Blaze, Pride flag may soon be banned from all city property in the Detroit area city after unanimous vote by City Council. Everyone is already represented by the American flag. From Courtney Wheel. One Michigan city may soon ban the Pride flag and other flags representing particular racial or religious groups from all government buildings and city property after a resolution passed unanimously by the City Council. On Tuesday evening, area residents lined up outside the door to attend a City Council meeting in Hamtramck. I've never heard of this city. And that looks like a nightmare to try to actually pronounce. Is it Hamtramck? Michigan. A city almost entirely surrounded by the city of Detroit. Local interest in this meeting was so elevated because of a resolution introduced by council member and mayor pro tem Mohammed Hassan, which would prohibit all religious, ethnic, racial, political, or sexual orientation group flags from being flown on city property. Only the American flag, the flag of the state of Michigan, and the Hamtramck flag, the prisoner of war flag, and the nation's flags that represent the international character of our city shall be flown, the resolution stated. Okay, I think I figured out what's going on here. Mayor Pro Tem Mohammed Hassan, plus things that have been told to me about the area, this part of Detroit, by my friend Nailbender, kind of tells me that this is the same reason that they don't put the Pride icon, these corporate companies, they don't put the Pride icon on their Arabic-speaking or Middle Eastern official pages on social media. I didn't pre-read this article, but I got kind of curious right away as to what was going on here, and I think I just figured it out. The meeting lasted for more than 3 hours as members of the public spoke either in favor or against the resolution. Pride Month, don't put it down our throats, said Hassan Aoun, a resident of Dearborn, another Detroit area city with a significant Muslim population. You can be gay by yourself. Do not put the Pride flag on city property. Councilmember Naeem Chowdhury argued that all groups are already represented by the American flag. Gay people are welcome, which is a huge departure from the Islamic culture that goes with that. But why do you have to have the flag shown on government property to be represented? You're already represented, he said. Chowdhury's statement echoed a portion of the resolution which affirmed that each religious, ethnic, racial, political, or sexually oriented group is already represented by the country it belongs to. Still others vehemently opposed the measure. Well, would you look at that? The first person who cited, who's opposing this, has a particularly white name. I have no idea what the person looks like, but I can look at the name that's put forward and get an idea that he probably doesn't follow the same faith as Naeem Chowdhury. The LGBTQ community is the lifeblood of our organization, claimed Darren Shelton, executive director of Planet Ant Theater. I don't think sexuality is a political issue. Well, it wasn't until probably about 20 years ago, when the union workers were starting to take off and make a huge living, and the Democrats needed a new permanent underclass. Oh, Mogwai. Mogwai, whose favorite politician is Lindsey Graham, says Lindsey Graham has the same stance. If you're gay, you're welcome. Just saying. Let's see. Mogwai says, I'm sorry, but the ban will be fast-tracked to the steps of the Supreme Court. This is a huge Muslim area, I read. The left was pleasuring themselves till now with this city. Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever see Nailbender in like the Discord or on Twitter or something, he loves to tell the story of the demographics of this area, which he grew up near. I don't think he lives there anymore, but he grew up in this area. Actually, I want to... Hamtramck. We're going to pull it up on the map and have a look. Because I like looking at things on the map. Not a huge fan of maps, but I like looking at things on the map. So yeah, I mean, this is just a tiny little neighborhood. Although I'm sure there are probably 5,000 to 7,000 people. Oh, more than that. Good God. Hamtramck is a city in Wayne County in the U.S. state of Michigan. As of the 2020 census, the city population was 28,433 in that little area. It's surrounded by Detroit, except for a small portion that borders fellow enclave, city of Highland Park. Yeah, that's all Detroit around there. Another woman who opposed the bill wore a clown nose and said the city should change its slogan to Hamtramck. Welcomes you if you're straight. She even used some of their time at the podium to kiss the woman standing beside her. Look at the guy just recording. It's like Barney Stinson in the middle of McLaren's when two girls kissed. Haley Kane told the council that the resolution, which she called a clear message of discrimination, caused her to reconsider her choice to move there. I relocated from California to Hamtramck, which is really far away because I thought it was a diverse community, she said. I'm questioning whether it is. I don't want to live in a place like this. Well, it's a diverse community, just not diverse the way that you want it to be. Kane is correct. The city has a long history of traditional diversity. In the early 20th century, it quickly became a haven for Polish immigrants who just entered the country and is now the highest percentage of immigrants of any city in Michigan. Mostly from the Middle East, it appears. In the last few decades, many Muslim residents moved to the city. And Hamtramck is now the only city in the U.S. which the mayor's office and all city council seats are occupied by a Muslim, which is a big part of the reason we're going through this right now. So there is your Pride Month update. Let's talk about one. We actually get to get rid of this one because I didn't realize this one was blocked behind Reader's Pass. So long, Shapiro. Hey, look, it's me. Let's talk about Denver. I don't know if Mr. Scott is here, but I hear that this is his stomping grounds. At least 9 injured in a mass shooting in downtown Denver, police say soon after the Nuggets' NBA title win. From Tina Burnside, Andy Babineau, and Lucy Kavanagh. At least 9 people were injured in the mass shooting in downtown Denver, police said, as crowds gathered to celebrate the Nuggets' first NBA championship. Shots were fired with multiple firearms during an altercation involving several people, police said, hours after the Nuggets defeated the Heat at the Ball Arena less than a mile away. The gunfire was reported in the 2000 block of Market Street, police said, near the intersection with 20th Street. Hundreds of fans had packed into the intersection and surrounding streets to celebrate the NBA title. Video shows. So they're saying, yeah, they're investigating this area right here. Of the 9 people shot, 5 remain hospitalized. Denver Health Medical Center trauma surgeon Eric Campione said on Thursday. He believes all are currently in fair condition. Our strong belief is that this is completely unassociated with the celebration, Police Chief Ron Thomas said. Really? That's like saying that cars burning when the Blackhawks win in Chicago are completely unrelated to the fact that the Blackhawks won. If you've never been to Chicago or been in the Chicago Metro, I forgive you for not understanding that reference. Hey, here's one that I've actually experienced before because I was actually in the area when it happened. It's like in '07 when the Sox won the World Series and there were several cars on fire. But let's just say it's unrelated to what the Red Sox did. Instead, the police said the shooting may have been drug-related. Large amounts of cash and a significant quantity of fentanyl pills were found in the area, according to the Denver Police Major Crimes Division Commander Matt Clark. Well, let's see. Let's see if we can piece some of this together here. You've got a celebration in which a large amount of the metro area is gathered into one place. And you have entrepreneurial people who like to sidestep the supposed drug war that the government is supposedly winning. In said area, enterprising, because there's so many people in the area, many of whom are flushed with cash, while tensions are already high because people are celebrating, rioting, and raving. And you still want to tell me this is unrelated to the festivities from the Denver Nuggets? Are you stupid? Mogwai says, I know how this sounds. It's usually what gets said right before you get banned on YouTube. But the NBA and NHL championships were going on at the same time, and I didn't hear of any mass shootings at the Golden Knights championship. Just saying. Kinda makes you think, doesn't it? Kinda makes you wonder. Two men have been taken into custody in relation to the incident. Ricardo Vasquez, 22, is being held on charges of possession of a weapon by a previous offender and possession of a controlled substance. Raul Jones, 33, is being held on charge of possession of a weapon by a previous offender, according to Clark. Additional charges may be added as the investigation continues, Clark said. Earlier, officers indicated a suspect had been taken into custody when they had been shot. We recognize it's likely the individuals who are responsible for discharging the firearms downtown were also injured by gunfire, Clark said. Well, that's also going under the assumption that these two men were not the only two men down there that had a firearm. 5 weapons have been recovered so far, according to Clark. He said testing will be conducted on all of them to determine whether they were fired during the incident. Police are conducting a complex investigation, they said. And again, this is probably going to be the last you hear of this. Final count off of this from ESPN. At least 10 were wounded in Denver after Nuggets win the NBA title. At least 10 people were wounded in a mass shooting early Tuesday in the area where basketball fans had been celebrating the Nuggets' first NBA title win, police said. Police said the shooting was likely sparked by a drug deal gone wrong. It left 10 people wounded, including 1 or 2 suspects. Police Chief Ron Thomas said Tuesday that all the injured are expected to survive. That includes 5 or 6 people police believe were bystanders and not involved in the drug deal. Yeah, it's funny how that works. You have a crowd of people and people who don't respect the rules of society, who typically also don't respect the rules of firearm training, who, for whatever reason, don't know their target and what's beyond it. The gunfire broke out around 12:30 a.m., about 3.5 hours after the game. Police said 20 rounds were fired at the scene, roughly a mile from Ball Arena, where the Nuggets defeated the Miami Heat on Monday night. The wounded suspect, a man, has been taken into custody by the Denver Police Department. As far as what led up to the altercation that resulted in the shots being fired, that's still under investigation at this time. Police spokesperson Doug Shepman said it did occur in the area where we had the largest gathering of folks celebrating during the night. And one thing I'm going to say I'm very impressed by with the fans of all this area is that they're like, this didn't get worse. As they're saying, this was the largest concentration of people who were celebrating. You hear gunshots where thousands upon thousands of people are gathered into a very, very small area, sometimes shoulder to shoulder. You stand a real trample risk. And I'm surprised pleasantly that we didn't see a lot more death from this. I'm very happy that we didn't see a lot more death from this, actually. Police were interviewing witnesses, and Shepman described the ongoing investigation as expansive. So, we will see what happens with that. Some foreign news, first from our continent, that we will move across the ocean. From CNN, Mexico plans to launch an asylum processing app next week. From Rosa Flores, Mexico is launching a new app to speed up its asylum process amid record levels of asylum seekers, even after a similar U.S. app came under fierce criticism for glitches and difficulty of use. Yeah, that government. They don't always build the best stuff, do they? Andres Ramirez, head of Mexico's refugee assistance agency, Comar, told CNN he believes an app was necessary to manage an overwhelming number of asylum requests in Mexico City. We're having so many people, we simply cannot cope, Ramirez said. Ramirez said that for the first time in the history of his agency, during the first 18 days of May, which asylum applicants were filed in Mexico City, then in the southern Mexico city of Tapachula, which borders Guatemala. During this time, 3,300 applicants were filed in Mexico City and 3,000 in Tapachula, Ramirez said. The new app, simply called the pre-registration system, will allow individuals to register their intent to seek asylum online, and is hoped to speed up processing. It's expected to launch next week in Mexico City only, with other areas expected to be added at a later date, according to Ramirez. So I'm kind of curious too as to how they're applying in Mexico City, because as far as I knew, that's landlocked, isn't it? Let's bring this back up here. Let's check the map. Come on. Type properly. I'm going to bring this over here first. So, yeah, Mexico City is landlocked. And that is the national capital as well, by the way. So people are making it all the way to here, to the capital, to seek asylum, coming from here. I'm trying to find... Yep, Tapachula is the first major city that they run into when they first get into Mexico. And that does seem to be a fairly significant city too, by the way. There also really isn't a lot else in this area as far as civilization. You've got a couple small cities scattered around the rest of the area, but for the most part, really nothing else. So they're completely bypassing this area. Getting past Oaxaca even, by the way, which a person would think would be another major processing area, but apparently not, then going straight into Mexico City to go seek their asylum. So much so that the federal government of the Mexican people has decided that yes, they need to make an app for that. And then, of course, they continue on their journey to Texas, where they will get on a bus and go to Los Angeles or DC or Chicago, maybe Martha's Vineyard. He believes the influx is part of the result of the end of Title 42 in the U.S., which brought many more people to Mexico. In hopes of crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, these hopes were punctured by a harsh new rule enacted by the Biden admin that bars most asylum seekers who travel through other countries from gaining protection in the U.S. if they enter the country illegally. Kind of sounds like Remain in Mexico. Ramirez said that some individuals applying for asylum in Mexico City may still be waiting to get an appointment to U.S. Customs and Border Protection's CBP One app, through which users can make appointments to enter legally through a port of entry to make their case for asylum. The U.S. CBP One app has been sharply criticized by immigrant advocacy groups who point out that the same migrants who lack the resources to get a smartphone, absence of adequate internet access to use the app, and may struggle with language and literacy barriers. Groups have also reported concerns about how the app's facial recognition technology handles darker skin. CBP has told CNN the app has worked as intended, and that more than 79,000 individuals have scheduled appointments since the app was launched in January 2023. CBP also revamped the app earlier this month to address some of the concerns and, for the first time, allowed people in central Mexico, not just at the border, to apply. So, we may see that surge that the Biden admin is worrying about after all. We'll see. The Mogwai says, my governmental app to get into the country is down again. Guess I'll just take this tunnel that looks like it was built by the Army Corps of Engineers. It's probably a good sign. Nothing bad could go wrong there. And then Mogwai also says, I wonder if that's close to the bar from shown in From Bribe Till Dawn. Nice. Bringing back the old meme. Let's read again from Newsweek. Russia blows dam in Donetsk to slow Ukrainian advance, according to Kiev, from David Brennan. Kiev authorities have accused Russia of destroying another dam in occupied territory in a bid to slow Ukraine's nascent counteroffensive. This time, the dam was in the eastern Donetsk Oblast, which has been a hotspot for fighting throughout the 9 years of war between the two neighbors. There's only been 2 years of war. I wouldn't even say 2 years, like 16 months. A spokesperson for the Tavria Front Defense Forces, a Ukrainian military unit operating on the Donetsk front, told Ukrainska Pravda on Sunday that occupying Russian troops destroyed a dam on the Mokry Yali River, causing significant flooding on both sides of the waterway. On the Mokry Yali River, the occupiers blew up a dam, which led to flooding on both river banks, Valery Shershin said. However, this does not affect offensive operations for Tavria Front Defense Forces. Shershin suggested the pattern of Russian forces using hydroelectric infrastructure as a weapon. First, occupiers blew up Karlivka Reservoir, then Kharkova hydroelectric power plant. Then they blew up hydroelectric facilities in occupied part of Zaporizhzhia Oblast. In Zaporizhzhia Oblast, they expect breakthrough by defense forces, so slow down our advance. They resort to tactic when they blow hydroelectric facility in Mokry Yali River again. However, this has not affected advance of defense forces. Newsweek has contacted the Russian Defense Ministry by email to request comment. The reported destruction of the Mokry Yali River Dam comes shortly after the collapse of the Nova Kakhovka Dam in occupied southern Ukraine, a major disaster that's caused severe flooding on both the Ukrainian and Russian-occupied sides of the Dnipro River, called the Dnipro River in Ukrainian. Kiev has blamed Russia, which is in total control of the dam at the time of its destruction. Ukrainian officials say that the occupying troops detonated explosives inside the structure to flood the frontline area and prevent any Ukrainian counteroffensive operations there. Hold on. I mean, I've only got one question for this.
Construction of the Hoover Dam. From top to bottom, the dam is 51 stories. It has a maximum capacity for generating 2.074 megawatts of electricity. But on the average, it generates about 25% of that. Now, can anybody tell me how much energy it takes to power Las Vegas?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is this a goddamn?
We're going to get the map out again, because we've got to talk about this for just a second. The fact that this is happening inside of occupied area means that this is really, really stupid. So here's the Donetsk region, and the dam creates this reservoir right here, with the rest of it going down and flowing down into the Kalmius River, running down, running down. It's kind of hard to tell, but it just runs down, goes, joins up the Dnipro. But this is all in occupied territory, which means for all intents and purposes, everything from like here over is effectively Russia at this point. Google Maps is actually never going to turn that and put the occupied or disputed border indicator up there. They're never going to do that. That's for propagandistic purposes. But everything over here from Kharkiv down to Mariupol and then over is, for all intents and purposes, Russian territory. Which means that at this point, if Russia is taking down their own infrastructure, and you've got to sit back and wonder, why would somebody do that? What possible purpose would you have to take away electricity from all of your troops? Because that's what you're doing, realistically, at this point. And it was, by the way, the same thing when you came back out, looked over, and saw what was happening in the Kakhovka Dam. You ran a few very, 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 very stupid moves, especially going with the Zaporizhzhia power plant, because the Dnipro River reservoir here provides the cooling for the nuclear power plant, not to mention the fact that this flooded out the entire valley on both sides, including Russian-occupied territory. I, for the most part, am starting to decide, as for the Kakhovka Dam, that this was something where there had been shelling and attacking before. The shelling stopped, and then just the stress on the dam actually took the thing out. I am more suspicious about what was happening with the Oblats Dam, because this is in fully occupied territory. And again, this goes down the same logic when we talk about, hey, here, you redneck there with your little AR-15, you're not going to stand up to the government. The government has nukes. Let's be realistic. If the government has come to a point that they're turning nuclear weapons on their own citizenry, they've exhausted many, if not all other options, because when they start launching those nukes against their own people, they're also launching those nukes against their own infrastructure. Something that they're going to have to rebuild. Something that's going to affect how their citizenry operates and engages in commerce on a day-to-day basis. For Russia to go and blow this dam means that they are affecting their own people and territory that they have occupied. And I don't understand where that makes any strategic sense. But the pro-Ukrainian government and the pro-Ukrainian corporatists in this country will come back out and tell you that it's just they're doing it because they're evil and no other purpose whatsoever. Mogwai says, Ukraine battle plan designed by Moose and Squirrel, an unknown source, is quoted as saying, "Where can I get some damn bait?" asks Uncle Eddie. Silentcaster's here, says, Moog is a Russian spy. Mogwai says, no, I'm not. You're just like calling me Boris when I call you Natasha. Caster says, I'm short, so I'd be Boris. And then Linda Graham says it's to save democracy or something. Let's read from Reuters. Ukraine says Russia blew up the dam to prevent offensive in the south. Dude, that's all going to flow downhill. If you're doing that to prevent an offensive, you've bought yourself a few days. The Kakhovka Dam was blown up by Russian forces to prevent Ukrainian troops from advancing in the southern Kherson region, Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said on Sunday. Ukraine has accused Russian forces of blowing up the dam from inside its associated hydroelectric power plant. The site has been under Russian occupation since the early weeks of Russia's invasion in February of last year. Moscow has blamed the destruction of the dam on the Ukraine. Each side has accused the other of shelling civilians as rescue efforts are carried out. The explosion in Kakhovka hydroelectric power station was apparently carried out with the intention of preventing Ukrainian defense forces from launching offensive in Kherson sector, Maliar said in the Telegram messaging app. She said the action, which was unleashed a vast flood which inundated towns and villages, trapped residents, and swept away entire houses, was also aimed at helping to allow the deployment of Russian reserves to the Zaporizhzhia and Bakhmut areas. I'm sorry, what? So, you blow a dam here, taking out large swaths of your own forces, occupied territory, and civilians, because it'll help you deploy troops here. Somehow. I play a lot of StarCraft. I'm still going to need some help with that one. Ukrainian President Zelensky said on Saturday that the counteroffensive and defensive operations were taking place in Ukraine. Especially here. When you empty out this river basin, you make it easier for the people on this side of the river to come back over to this side of the river. Zelensky gave no details. A military spokesperson has said counterattacking Ukrainian forces have advanced up to 1,400 meters at a number of sections at the front line near the eastern city of Bakhmut. Ukrainian land forces have said on Sunday that soldiers of the 68th Separate Hunting Brigade have liberated the village of Blahodatne in the Donetsk region. We've got one on here from the Associated Press. Ukraine's dam collapse is a both fast-moving disaster and a slow-moving ecological catastrophe. From Lori Hinnant and Sam McNeil and Ilya Novikov. There we go. The destruction of the Kakhovka Dam was a fast-moving disaster that's swiftly evolving into a long-term environmental catastrophe, affecting drinking water, food supplies, and ecosystems reaching into the Black Sea. The short-term dangers can be seen from outer space. Tens of thousands of parcels of land flooded and more to come. Experts say the long-term consequences will be generational. By the way, this is where a lot of the wheat fields are as well, so your bread and grain prices are going to be going up. For every flooded home and farm, there are fields upon fields of newly planted grains, fruits, and vegetables whose irrigation canals are drying up. Thousands of fish were left gasping on mudflats. Fledgling water birds lost their nests and their food sources. Countless trees and plants have drowned. If water is life, the draining of the Kakhovka Reservoir creates an uncertain future. For the region of southern Ukraine that was an arid plain until the damming of the Dnipro River 70 years ago. The Kakhovka Dam was the last in a system of 6 Soviet-era dams on the river which flows from Belarus to the Black Sea. Then the Dnipro River became part of the front line after Russia's invasion last year. All this territory formed its own particular ecosystem, with the reservoir included, said Katerina Filiusha, an expert in protected habitats for the Ukraine Nature Conservation Group. Ihor Medinov is very much part of that ecosystem. His working at Hunting and Fishing Guide effectively ended with the start of the war. But he stayed on his little island compound with his 4 dogs because it seemed safer than the alternative. Still, for months, the knowledge of Russian forces controlled the dam downstream worried him. The 6 dams along the Dnipro River were designed to operate in tandem, adjusting to each other as water levels rose and fell from one season to the next. When Russian forces seized the Kakhovka Dam, the whole system fell into neglect. Whether deliberately or simply carelessly, the Russian forces allowed water levels to fluctuate uncontrollably. They dropped dangerously low in the winter and then rose to historic peaks when the snow melted and spring rains pooled in the reservoir. Until Monday, the waters were lapping onto Medunov's living room. Now with the destruction of the dam, he's watching his livelihood literally ebb away. The waves that stood at his doorstep a week ago are now a muddy walkway. The water is leaving before our eyes, he told the Associated Press. Everything that was at my house, what we worked for all our lives, it's all gone. First it drowned, then when the water left, it rotted. And again, strategically, this still makes absolutely zero sense for Russia to pop this dam. I mean, to read from the Associated Press, you would legitimately believe that they blew the dam in order to screw this one little guy. I still have reason enough to believe. I would believe it if somebody told me that they caught the U.S. red-handed as being the ones who blew the dam. Mogwa says this battle plan sounds like it was made by a group of 20-somethings playing Risk at 3 a.m. doing Jaeger bombs. The battle plan was purchased off Wish. No, Russia and China are getting along right now, actually. For now. We'll see how long that lasts. All right, from Ted Lieu in his office. Ted Lieu tweets out, "Today we introduce bipartisan legislation to designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism," which means absolutely nothing. Thank you to co-leads Rep. Joe Wilson, Rep. Ken Buck, Rep. Golden, Rep. Cohen, and Congresswoman of South Carolina, who is, by the way, Sheila Sherfilius McCormick for South Carolina 20. And that comes with an announcement from Lieu's official congressional page. Rep. Lieu introduces bipartisan bill to designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism, which again means absolutely dick, except for Russia man bad. We know like Russia man. We were already sanctioning Russia, so sanctions aren't going to do anything different. Pretty much unless you plan to go back and invade Russia, this changes absolutely nothing except for, hey, we get to say that we don't like these people. Today, Congressman Ted Lieu of LA County led a bipartisan group of members introducing the Russia as a State Sponsor of Terrorism Act. The bipartisan legislation officially deems Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. The bill, co-led by Steve Cohen of Tennessee, Joe Wilson of South Carolina, Jared Golden of Maine, Ken Buck of Colorado, all warmongers, by the way, so far, and Sheila Sherfilius McCormick of Florida, outlines Russia's repeated... I thought she was from South Carolina. Outlines Russia's repeated support for non-state terrorist groups prior to and during the Ukraine conflict. Drawing on sanctions authority originally created by Congress, the bill further isolates Russia and inflicts more economic consequences on Putin's regime. And they've got the full bill text here for that. But again, it doesn't do anything except for, oh, Russia man bad. We don't like him. A little bit more off of this from UKR Inform. Congressman Ted Lieu from the Democratic Party on Friday reintroduced the Russia as a State Sponsor of Terrorism Act, bipartisan legislation to officially deem Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. The U.S. has a range of tools available to hold the Russian Federation accountable, reduce its war machine, and isolate it economically and diplomatically. Really, because they're allied with China right now. How exactly do you intend to isolate them economically? Including by designating it as a state sponsor of terrorism and imposing corresponding sanctions, the bill reads. The document states that the Russian Federation spreads terror throughout the world through private military networks of mercenaries such as the Wagner Group. You know, kind of like the US does. In addition to the illegal occupation of the eastern territories of Ukraine in 2014 and Russia's full-scale invasion of the country in February of 2022, the document also mentions the Second Chechen War and the war in Syria, where Russian Federation was involved in terrorist campaigns. Again, let's not look into a lot of what happened under the Obama administration, because you're going to find some things that you don't like, I promise you. According to the bill, the Department of the Treasury identifies the Wagner Group as its designated Russian Ministry of Defense proxy force, and states that the Wagner's activities in other countries, including Ukraine, Syria, Sudan, Libya, have generated insecurity and incited violence against innocent civilians. The document also states that nothing in this act may be construed as to provide for the imposition of sanctions against any person that engages in transactions to export agricultural products from Ukraine or to provide humanitarian assistance in Ukraine. So, Any defectors in Russia who go and help Ukraine are not covered by this bill. And again, it's basically Putin man bad because, what? We've already tried to isolate them diplomatically. Most of Europe won't even have a conversation with them. They're already sanctioned into the ground. What else is it you're actually going to do, Lou, except for wave and virtue signal? One of the Krappensteins got onto the stack today. Ed Krasenstein today, breaking. The U.S. has just announced a $2.1 billion military aid package for Ukraine. This includes munitions for Patriot air defense systems. This will help Ukraine better defend itself against Russia. This will help prevent Russian aggression. How? This is a bipartisan supported package, though some Republicans are against it. What are your thoughts? Well, here's my thought. All of you watching Contemporary right now, you have to go back and tell 10 of your friends, who have to go back and tell 10 of their friends, that you all have to try to improve your lot in life. Get a better job. Increase your salary so you can go back in and pay more taxes because the Ukraine needs your tax money. Some of the propaganda that's going to go with this from our friends of the MAGA crowd, I will point out and remind you of the fact that this is not going to be direct cash to Ukraine. They're going to go back out and clean out our armory for ammunition for the Patriot air defense system. Several million rounds of ammunition for their small arms. Probably a few more tanks because they keep blowing those things up while they're over there. Some food, some rations, some MREs, things like that. But for the most part, it's going to be small arms, new weapon systems for $2.1 billion that Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are now going to go back and request authorization to provide back to the U.S. military at an elevated price, putting more money back into their stock portfolio and improving the stock lives of several people in Congress, which is why this is a bipartisan legislation. Those are my thoughts. Thank you, Ed Krasenstein, for asking. PBS. Pentagon announces new $2.1 billion package of military aid to Ukraine. And I know this will never happen, but is it possible that I can see the invoice for what it's going to take to refuel and replenish these packages? You already know the answer to that. You'll see that invoice the same time you see the invoice for the Holy Jab. The Pentagon announced Friday it will provide an additional $2.1 billion in long-term weapons aid for Ukraine. The new assistance package will include funding for more Patriot missile battery munitions, Hawk air defense systems and missiles, and small Puma drones that can be launched by hand. The latest infusion of funding, one of the largest packages in U.S. history, has provided, comes as there are signs that Ukraine is beginning or about to begin a much anticipated counteroffensive to try to take back territory that's been seized by Russia. Unlike the U.S. equipment, weapons and ammunition that are more frequently sent from Pentagon stocks and delivered quickly to Ukraine, this money would be provided under the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative and is meant to be spent over the coming months or even years to ensure Ukraine's future security needs. Oh, so it is cash. Well, it's a line of credit, actually, not cash, but it's a line of credit that's going to be forgiven. As long as they buy from us. In a statement, the Pentagon said the package shows America's continued commitment to both Ukraine's critical near-term capabilities as well as the enduring capacity of Ukraine's armed forces to defend its territory to deter Russian aggression over the long term. The aid will also include munitions for laser-guided rockets and undisclosed amount of artillery rounds and funding for training and maintenance support. A number of admin officials have acknowledged that the fighting in Ukraine has intensified in the recent days, but much of the focus turned early this week to the collapse of Kakhovka Dam and the Dnipro River. The White House and the Pentagon insisted Thursday they're still working to determine who caused the damage, which set off a scramble to evacuate residents in dozens of flooded areas and get aid to those still there. I'm going to tweet that. I know that Castor's going to hate it. I know. I apologize, Castor. But I'm going to tweet that question. Can we get an invoice for what Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are charging us to restock our supplies that are being sent over to Ukraine as military aid packages? I want to know how much that costs and what the markup is on it. I know the answer. We're never going to see the invoice. Alright, and the last one that we have here. I don't know why my DMs keep staying open. I don't know. I would say that asking for an invoice from the US government, or to the US government, I should say, entails some critical thought. Partially because I'm critical of the US government. Alright. In total, during the failed attack on the Zaporizhzhia Axis, the armed forces in the Ukraine lost at least, are you ready? Because this is all the stuff that's going to need to be replenished by Western countries. And the lead people who are going to be doing the replenishing are private defense contractors like Raytheon, like Lockheed Martin, like Northrop Grumman. Alright, are you ready? We've got a thread here too. The thread is mostly pictures. But we will go down through this. 5 German tanks, Leopard 2A6 and 2A4, 2 destroyed, 1 hit and abandoned, 3 abandoned. 6 American infantry fighting vehicles, M2A2 Bradley ODSSA, so 6 American tanks, all hit and abandoned. 3 American MRAP M122 4 Max Pro, all hit and abandoned. That's an international truck, by the way. One Dutch armored personnel carrier, YPR 765, hit and abandoned. 1 Czech T-72M1 destroyed. 1 BMR-2 demining vehicle, hit and abandoned. 1 French VAB armored car, hit and abandoned. And several burnt out trucks. And here we have SMP-2, M2A2, ODS-3A, American tanks. Bradley. I know it's hard to see. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Leopard 2A6. M1224 Max Pro. M2A2 Bradley, again, ODSSA. Hit and abandoned. Another German Leopard tank. And whatever this used to be. Well, I think the Leopard tank is here. He doesn't specify what this used to be. The other Navistar, the Max Pro. And another Leopard 2A6. What else do we have here? Simply abandoned YPR 765. VAB T-72M1. More German tanks. Another Bradley. and Leopard 2A4. And again, when we go back and replenish all these, that's going to be coming from those great big defense contractors who are held in stock by almost every member of our United States Congress. Aren't you ready? Again, go and get yourself a better job, because it is your duty to pay taxes to go back over here and replenish the defense contractors who are going to be replenishing and making our Congress people rich. All right, our makeup stream is done. That's everything. It was a nice short day. Well, I guess we did an hour and a half, so got a lot of stuff covered, and we can start fresh on Monday. I've already got a few articles and articles worth investigating ready to go on Monday. Again, a reminder, by the way, if you're in the Discord, you can put the articles that you want covered in here, and you can use whatever source that you want. I can't promise that I will use your source directly, because I am very, very picky on how I source things. And there are some things that I can't source at all because they only get covered by conservative blogs, and I try not to do that on my show. If there is going to be some leftoid that comes in here that says that all you're doing is reading from Daily Wire and evil faux news and things like that, I show them the receipts and say, hey, isn't that the Associated Press? Isn't that CNN? But anything that you put in articles, I will look into. That is a promise from me to you. You can help shape the show. This is the people's show. And hey, we might come up with another point where we have to have a big makeup stream again to try to keep up with the massive influx of what happened over the week. Just like I said yesterday, the vast majority of what it is that we're seeing, especially last week, is Trump news. Because once they decide that he needs to be in the news, which they try to black him out as much as they can unless he is in legal trouble, he sucks the air out of the room. We saw that last week. Some of the stuff that we just read here today has been on the stack since Monday. But we're dealing with a change in 250 years of civic precedent. The front runner of the party attempted to be put in jail, and the fact that people will still vote for him. Hell, I went on a 10-minute diatribe yesterday talking about why the Donald could possibly still win the election, but DeSantis in his present form probably can't. So that's a good way, again, to cover the things that you want. Go ahead and put that in there. You can always throw a message at me on Twitter DM. That's another good thing that I use Twitter for, is that's a good way to communicate with people who I would otherwise not give my phone number to. You can always do that over there. You can leave comments in here. You can leave articles in the chat. There are many ways that you can come back and make this to be the show that you want. But with that, we are going to head out of here for the day. It is warm out, but not too warm. I think I kind of want to go hit the trails and see if I can conquer that hill again. I really do. Maybe I'll go wind up in another city somewhere. I don't know. But we're going to head out of here for the night. Let's go back and find... Yeah. Caster says it doesn't. People who agree with you say yes, go. People that disagree will deflect. It stirs tension. It doesn't promote critical thought. If you want to promote critical thought, then explain why we will not see an invoice, which I just did. But I still want, one of the things I like about Twitter is the fact that it does bring people who don't agree with each other into conflict with each other, coming into the same conflicts that Castor just described, but in a way that it's really hard to have the across the aisle. And Twitter is doing it too, in a way that, they're shoving the tweets of people that disagree with each other towards each other because it drives engagement. It's a crappy move, and it's probably going to move us into civil war, but from a business standpoint, it's kind of genius. Part of the reason that they won't go bankrupt. Because they thrive on people fighting in a time when we are so divided, we can't get along on anything. Plus, other videos are 9 times out of 10 not copyrighted either, so we can use video sources without having to worry about that little slap on there that says, hey, you violated copyright law. Now your video's gone. Alright. I have got to do something with my day. I don't know what I'm going to do with my day. Where's the outro music? Where is that? Let's head out of here. Why is that not my outro music? Oh, I think it's because I watched something on Media Player earlier. For like the first time in years. Let's see, so we gotta open that back up with Windows Media Player. Yeah, I did screw that up. Where's my open with? Open with, there we go, Media Player. Alright, so with that, we're out of here for the day. We're out of here for the weekend. Thanks to everybody who came by and chatted and hung out in the live chat. The lurkers, the listeners, the people who were there. Remember, the show is now offered on Spotify, including the makeup stream. So if you want to catch back up and you didn't get a chance to catch up on the main stream, and you'd rather listen on the go, the Spotify option is there. The lookup is Contemporary with J. Edgar. Go look us up over there. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeart, I believe, and any place else that you get your podcasts. And if you can't find us on your particular favorite podcast app, let me know and I will go through the steps over on the podcatcher, which is Podbean, to get us into your favorite podcast app. Stitcher, we're on Stitcher too, by the way, and Google Play Podcast, which I don't know anybody who uses that. But with that, we're out of here. Have a great time. Go spend some time with family. Go get some barbecue or some grilled steak or some grilled chicken or something cooked outside. You all deserve it. It's going to be a great time. Spend some time with some friends, some family, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. We will see you here on Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. I have both my music going, don't I? We're going to raid too, by the way. We've got to figure out who it is we're going to raid. But first, we're going to mute one music stream. Let's go over on the Twitch side, see who is playing today. And on the Twitch side, see who is my voice. I don't want to listen to that. You are... Let's see. I just want to make sure that this is... Yeah, this is something that could be interesting. Alright, we are going to raid Moon Can't Game. Okay. Yep. We're going to go raid Moon Can't Game, so join me over there for that. We'll see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.